Undocumented immigrants crammed into small and unsanitary places in search of a better life. Border Patrol agents say these stash houses are on the rise.
So what would lead someone to want to turn to this type of crime?
The Eyewitness News border team finds out.
They travel long distances to get here. Mexico, Central America, China. Some choose to turn themselves in at the border, others look to avoid getting caught, a plan that doesn't always work out.
This is where the criminal organizations are a lot more elaborate, trying to circumvent our efforts. We get information from a whole bunch of different sources, but I think the community engagement has really made a difference.
Tips are what usually lead agents to raid a human stash house. Chief Padilla says they've hit about 150 of them since October, about a 90% increase compared to last year, he says. It's not what some neighbors on Hidalgo Street in Edinburgh ever suspected. Then they saw police bust a stash house in their own community.
I was thinking that it's just like family, they use visiting. And
while we often learn about stash houses, we typically don't get to hear from the people living in them.
So apparently children were also inside, along with about 29 undocumented immigrants.
We spoke to the children's 17-year-old brother, who we're calling Daniel.
Did you feel like you were doing anything wrong?
I mean, most of the people take this as like they take it as something bad we do, but honestly, the month that we've been doing this, people actually come in need.
Unless human smugglers choose to hold them against their will, they'll have the immigrants wait at a stash house until they can be moved past a checkpoint, hidden in tractor trailers, or by walking around it through ranch lands.
And hopefully one day this government will understand that people that come in here, it's not because they're illegal immigrants. Yes, they are, but they're not criminals. Most of them are fighting for their families as well as we are.
Daniel described how the recent loss of his 7-year-old sister in an ATV accident in March put the family in a difficult financial and emotional place.
Pero los niños estaban bien en sus condiciones y todo.
Daniel's relatives said the kids were fine and claimed to not have known this was going on. They said the children, including a 12-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl, called them to get picked up along with some of their belongings. We couldn't find out if Daniel's parents were the actual property owners or just renters. Daniel said they were taken along with the rest of the group into custody. In Edinburgh, near the Texas-Mexico border, I'm Oscar Margain reporting.